Hello, welcome to Gate 8 or Gene Key 8. So the gate of contribution, or the gene key of mediocrity on the shadow side, or style on the gift, or the opposite of shadow, which could be light, right? So let's look at the shadow of this gate, of this gene key. And the way that I really look at this is this idea of mediocrity, in which Richard Rudd talks about, is that in mediocrity, well, let's break it down first to how we exist in a society. In a society, from the very moment we're born, we are born into a system, our family system, and then we begin to go to our educational systems. And what happens in our educational systems is we're taught to be the same, right? We are graded in the same way as our peers. We are expected to sit in a certain way. We are expected, at least when I was in school, we're expected to sit still during the time. We are expected to understand maths in the same way as everyone else, or understand science or social studies, history in the same way. We are expected to memorize things, and we are expected to then write tests and prove what we know. So from the very moment that we come into this culture, this society that we live, that we are currently existing in, we are being asked and guided by our systems to conform to sameness, to be the same. And this is really what the shadow side of this gate or gene key is talking about when it talks about mediocrity. Because in this place of where we are taught to be the same as everyone else, there becomes this built-in fear of being different. What if I'm different? What will happen, right? It's like, it's risky to be a expressive individual in a world that asks us to be the same. And it almost gives us this illusion of safety, right? If we're just the same as everyone else, we will be safe. If we just fit in with our peers, if we just fit in at work, if we just fit in in the online world, we'll be safe. We'll somehow remain safe. The thing is, it's an illusion, right? Safety from outside of us is all an illusion. And when we're different, right, our world tells us that we're rebels, where we don't fit in, right? There's something wrong with that. I want you to think of, this reminds me of when I was a teenager. I was a rebel as a teen, and I wasn't like everyone else. I had my little group of friends, but I was dyeing my hair purple and wearing like slips and hippie bandanas and wide bell-bottom jeans and hanging out at the smoke pit. And in reflection to that, there was really this part of me that was really wanting to find, who am I, right? The sameness that I saw in a lot of my peers didn't resonate with me. I couldn't express myself authentically. It wasn't authentic to me. And that's really part of what happens for us when we're in the developmental stages, adolescence. It's the same thing we do when we're 2 and 3. We are looking for our identity. Who are we? Who am I at that age? Who am I inside? And what our world does is it restricts us from discovering that, from honoring the individuality, right? So we fall into this trap of, I'm just going to go along with everyone else. It's too scary to be different. And this is really the shadow that's coming up right now. Where are you settling in your life where you want to be doing something different? Where are you allowing yourself to conform because that feels safer, as opposed to spreading your wings and doing something different? Right? This idea, this shadow of mediocrity, this gate of contribution, it's on the shadow side of it, it's giving our power away to an entity outside of ourselves. It's creating this idea of people being followers to something outside of us, as opposed to being internally connected to who you are, who I am inside, and having the following come from the heart. And it really, this idea of conformity, this idea of fitting in, it restricts us from living from our creative hearts, from being moment to moment in life and being the ultimate creators that we truly are. So then we got the gifts. Then we've got this gate of contribution where we individually step in to who we are, when we can have the courage to do something that our heart longs for, when we can have the courage to see something out in the world a little bit differently and choose to share, or do share with people who want to hear us, right? Who are curious. And Richard Rudd calls the higher expression of this, so the gene key, the higher expression, style, right? And it's this idea of really finding, instead of looking outside for where do I go, what do I do, we go inside. And that takes a lot of faith in self, a lot of faith in our heart, and it takes a lot of courage. And this gene key is really where this idea of Richard Rudd says that this idea of the rebel is born in us here. It's found in a lot of the gene keys. But I want you to think about this word rebel for a second, right? I looked it up. I love the etymology of words, and it really comes down to this pushing back against government, right? And so if we think of government, right, and so then we're also taught that to rebel against our government, well, we shouldn't do that. I mean, right, if you think of the word rebel, just a minute, and notice what happens in your body when you think of that word. To be a rebel. What does that mean? I mean, the first thing that comes to me is it's like living on the fringes of society, kind of pushing out the boundaries that are placed upon us. The definition of it has to do with rebelling against government, which is, if we're looking at putting our focus outside of us and following something outside of us, when we choose to turn within and go, I'm going to follow this part of me that is very rebellious in a world that teaches us to look outside of ourselves for all the answers, to believe everything that everyone is saying. Oh, they say this, I'm going to do that because that is what I'm told, right? So every time we have a thought that is different than the norm, every time we think, well, maybe there's something else that is possible, we're awakening that inner rebel, that inner revolutionary inside of us that sees a possibility of something different for yourself and for the world. And that is really needed. We need that in this world. We need people to see newness. We need people to push against the boundaries of what our world is now and where our society is now. Each and every single one of us has a brilliant uniqueness inside of us. And if we are given the opportunity, if we take that opportunity for ourselves to express that, what would the world be? Right? You have a genius inside of you, just like I have a genius inside of me. Genius is not saved for incredibly high IQ human beings or people who are mathematicians or physicists. We are all geniuses inside. Your genius is unique to you, and my genius is unique to me. And if we begin to express that, I get really excited to think of where this world will go. Right? If we start to see how each person has a unique contribution, and we tap into our hearts, and we tap into our souls, and we channel that inner rebel, that inner revolutionary to do, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do this my way. Imagine the creativity. Imagine the art. Imagine the things that would be created in electronics, in technology, in house building, in food, in anything. Right? Think of someone who, right, we'll go back to this word style, who has style, right? They're always just on the little edge, right? You look at them and go, wow, look at what they're wearing, because they stand out. But they're very individual in their standing out. They're not going along with what everyone else is wearing. They're not believing that what is shown in the magazines is what style is. They're making their own style. So, this is about us being free thinkers. This is about us being free to be our unique selves and doing it without any consideration to how that's going to, or getting permission, I should say, from anyone else to do it. Right? A rebel doesn't get permission. Someone who is a free thinker or lives in their heart and free doesn't get permission. And this doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, right? We get to create our dreams and manifest them into reality, and this is what this Gate 8 is about. It's about creating for ourselves in spite of what anyone thinks of us, as long as it lights up our heart. So I hope that helps. I hope that inspires you. I know it inspires me because I have my own inner rebel, and it's scary sometimes, right? And the world needs more of us. The world needs more revolutionaries, more rebels, more free thinkers. Wishing you well.